Let's talk about it. Staying chaste until married, whether you're dating, you're in a relationship, you're Catholic, you're not Catholic, you're born again Protestant, you're in a fallen away Catholic relationship, you're actually living together. It doesn't matter. Why am I going to be saving myself for marriage? I do have to give you two disclaimers. The first is this is very personal, obviously. The second is that I have not been faithful to this rule because I was never a true Catholic. I was never a true person who actually believed in the Lord Jesus Christ. I actually never believed in a God really until personal development led to a bunch of people that I was listening to and watching, and they started talking about the creator or a creator, but they never said Jesus. Then you go down a rabbit hole. I have a whole testimonial. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I started learning as a Protestant what it meant to actually worship the Lord. And then you keep on going deeper, and then you go into church history, and then you understand about the Reformation, and then you understand how people actually lived for 1500 years until the Reformation. And then you read how they lived for 1800 years until things started to get modernized. And then Vatican II, the sexual revolution is never a good thing, completely wiped everything out. Obviously, on top of that, you have contraception, which is the worst thing that has happened in modern history. Everything that the Pope Paul the Fourth, I think, or the Sixth, I am totally mixing that up, but he put out an encyclical. Everything he said came true. So let's get right into it. The first thing is, as I said, I was a big person in the going out scene of New York City my entire adult life, all the way back to high school, all the way back to college, all the way back through my 20s when I lived by myself, when I had roommates and everything else. All I was doing about was desires of the flesh, desires of whatever felt good. I was just chasing women, whatever. It didn't really matter. There was no morals, there was no standards, there was no ethics, there was nothing. After parties, drinking too much, drug use, whatever. I just wanted all of it. So when I actually started to come into the true faith and understanding that as I lived was why I was unhappy, that there is actually no ending in sight when you're going after the flesh. There is a vaporous black despair, black hole of despair that you just go down and you don't know why another girl or another drug or another night out or another after party or another Thursday getting drunk and being hungover, why that's not satisfying you. And what does that have to do with marriage? It has everything to do with marriage, because once you include drinking, once you include going out, once you include all this music and sights and sounds and people just barely clothed out in the West Village where I was going out, or, say even on Instagram, DMing someone, it's all sin. It's all part of Satan's just little playground that he's got going on, not only in New York City, but across the United States and now, unfortunately, throughout the world. So I'm going to go through my little short story of how I'm approaching marriage as I'm discerning it. Number one is that I had to understand that my obedience to God has to supersede anything else. That was it. That my obedience was to myself when I lived of the world. And I'm talking about for my entire life, up until about a year and a half ago. I started to understand that there might be a creator. I had some demonic attacks. Then I was like, okay, the creator might be Jesus Christ. Then I was brought in by Protestants. Then I started understanding that, okay, actually there was a true faith before this, and all the lies about the Vatican and the Holy Roman Empire and the Catholic Church is actually all nonsense, to say the least. And then I started cutting things out of my life, like music. I started cutting out sports. I started cutting out anything that was of the world, anything when it comes to drama, or, I watched all these things that were, guys that streamed and they talked about all this nonsense that didn't really mean anything. I would watch some red pill content and be like, oh, that's not it. That's disgusting. You're not even getting married. You want multiple wives. You want multiple kids. You want all these fleshly desires, like more cars, more houses. I'm going away from that. So then I started just moving, and I have a video about that, moving towards this whole idea of obedience to God and not myself. I trusted in God's design on how he actually designed sex. That is the number one theology of the body that really flipped my brain upside down. So St. John Paul II has theology of the body. And obviously everyone's talked about this forever, but there's a reason that the Lord made the sacrament of marriage the first time that you have pleasure, and the pleasure leads to children, because that's what the Lord wants. That's the obedience to the Lord. It is not the obedience to pleasure, then you start using yourself or other people as these objects. And that's essentially what we're seeing all over the world. So I was like, I got to get rid of all the dating apps. I got to get rid of all the people that I was talking to and just cut it off and start anew. And Catholic Church, just teach me what you desire, obedience to the Lord. That is better than anything the world can desire. Number two is true freedom. True freedom, what do I mean by that? When you are in a state of despair, of getting rejected, or there's not someone that is, there's no date for your Thursday night, or this girl does not get back to you, or your buddies tell you actually you can't get into the club, or the bouncer says it's $100 to get a ticket, then you need $1,000 to get into that area that's VIP. Then we bring you bottle service, that's another $5,000. You're in this coping, weird, icky area of slime. That's really the best way to say it, is you're in this weird, just like you're trying to just use as many people as you can, as you just want to just consume this sloth, this envy, this all of the deadly sins just coming into your life. Just brutal attacks of inhumane desires that are not of the Lord. And the best way to say that is chastity provides the freedom away from that. When you know you're not going to that club, you're saving money. You're not jealous of people that can get in. You're not looking at women that are wearing clothes that are very lustful. You're also understanding you're not going to be living with the woman. You have to understand that the idea of living with her is going to be 99.99999% of the time, and then you're going to have the intimate act in marriage. So why are you doing the intimate act a larger portion of the time than getting to know her, her morality, her ethics, her values, her fear and love of the Lord? Number three is, actually going on to that, is there was a guilt and confusion and an emotional entanglement when you're in sin. When you are in a adulterous lifestyle, which is essentially sleeping outside of the sacrament of marriage, there's no vocation to sacrifice. That's the best way to say it. Moving on is the spiritual clarity of abstaining from even the desire to hold hands or to cuddle. I don't even mean by yourselves, but arm around each other. It's this intricate balance of understanding that you not only are looking towards the future, but you have to be aligned on the future. So you're cutting away all these emotions, all these desires that a man has, all these desires, all these emotions that a woman has, and you are essentially going where the spiritual clarity leads you, which is the Holy Ghost. It's where your heart and your soul are aligned with God's will, and you can easily discern the best spouse because you're not adding in this stuff that has nothing to do with long-term happiness. There is desires that bring about all of the divorces that we see. People that are literally getting married for lustful activities, that are getting married because he's tall or he's rich or she's hot. That's why people get divorced, because it wasn't based on foundations of truth. It was all based on foundations of lust, which moves me on. It's authentic love. Lust is essentially the masquerading as love. Lust is using someone for your desire. It's essentially using someone as an object for your desire, for your pleasure. That's not love. Love is the truth. Love is beauty. Beauty is not using someone. Beauty is not essentially the fully giving yourself over as a sacrifice to someone else. That's love. Lust is using them for your own good and not what their authentic love is. I know that was a whole word salad, and essentially it comes down is you're looking at them physically. It's really what it comes down to. Love is not physical. Yes, there's beauty within the physical, but it's not only the physical. Moving on, you are also protecting your future spouse. When you get into intimate relationships, there is something called soul ties. It might be a Protestant point of view. I don't know if it's true. I could be totally speaking outside of the bounds. But when you are intimate with someone else, there's a soul tie in the Protestant point of view. When I was coming into the Protestant point of view, you're exchanging iniquities and transgressions with someone. That's disgusting. If you really think about it, you're essentially getting to the most intimate act that God and Jesus Christ, the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost created, that you can come together in a sacramental covenant, a contract that is unbroken with the Lord. So the protecting of I wrote down that you are choosing love before you even met them. You are honoring their future heart, mind, body, and soul. That's the best way to say it. You're honoring them before you even know who they are. Moving on, the emotional stability is the same thing with protecting your spouse. When you're in these relationships, the emotional instability is disgusting. It is, are they calling me back? I have to text. Oh, they texted me an hour after. It's got to be an hour, 15 minutes. You're playing all these games, going back and forth. Just, am I witty enough? Am I smart enough? Should I call? Should I text? Does she like me? Does she not like me? What does this sign mean? What does that sign mean? It's all just a big game of pleasure and one-upping and envy and jealousy and sloth and lazy and lust and pleasure. And it's just, it's so, if I was just in heaven, just looking down at the way that we are just desecrating the holy matrimony, or the holy the holy sacrament of matrimony, it's got to be very, very displeasing to the Lord. The witness to the culture, I wanted to be in a quiet rebellion. This myself, through my whole life, has been a rebellion against whatever was cool. Whatever was cool, I didn't like to do it. You like listening to that? I don't like it. You like to do that? I don't like it. So my whole life, I was against the rebellion of sleeping around, which was something I was part of. You know what? I'm going to have a quiet rebellion against that. So when you're actually talking to women, they can sense this weird calm, this weird, like, oh, he's not actually trying to be with me intimately. This is weird. This is interesting. This is strange. But Catholics, you have to understand, you have to marry other Catholics. It's a testimony to purity, what's possible, especially with sacrifice, knowing your worth. Moving on, deep respect for the sacrament. I've talked about this many times, is that marriage is holy. Saving sex for that covenant was a way to revere its sacredness. Moving on from that, actually going back to that, is that you have to understand the duty and the reverence and the seriousness. That's the best word. It is a serious covenant to break. All covenants are awful to break, but to get married in the Holy Catholic Church and then get a divorce, or to sleep outside of marriage, or to sleep before marriage, and you're just desecrating the holy sacrament of not staying chaste, is awful. And especially if you're considering living with each other, don't do that. It's long-term joy over short-term pleasure. This is something that I've noticed in my life, is that when I have completely abstained of watching illicit material or acting on illicit material, or even considering that I'm going to be anything but chaste until marriage, your mind frees up. Your mind goes completely clear. Your mind goes from chaos to just peace and calm. There's just this, you're not looking at women lustfully. You're not looking at them in ways you shouldn't. You're not turning around and looking at them. You're not chasing women down. You're not mad that no one's getting back to you. It's a very different way of looking at things. And the last thing is that there is a pain that you go through when you are going your whole life not meeting the woman that you want to spend the rest of your life with. That's the best way to say. You have the opposite. The opposite of the people who stay chaste, find their spouse. It's not going to be lovey-dovey. Everyone's got fresh laundries for 60, 70 years. But the opposite is also true, is that whether it's from a past mistake, watching others suffer, casual sex, the cost of it, I just didn't want that story. I had that story. I was in that story. It was an awful story. I don't recommend that story. I'm not one of those people that go on TikTok and say, this is the best thing for you. It is the worst thing for you. This is the worst thing you could do, is sleep outside of marriage, not save yourself for marriage, not looking at your future spouse and respecting and honoring your future spouse, not honoring the sacredness of the covenant of marriage that God put into our life for our goodness and to reproduce and to be fruitful and multiply. And chastity is a good thing. Staying chaste is a good thing. It's not a restriction. And the last thing I'll say is that the world offers you so much pleasure. And I'm not even talking about intimate pleasure. I mean distractions, social media, drama, politics, gaming, gambling on gaming. It doesn't matter. Sports, music, Bravo TV, ESPN, TikTok, Twitter, your job, water cooler fountain nonsense, the bars, concerts. There are so many distractions. Don't let this be one of them. Don't let saving yourself, chastity, staying chaste until you find your spouse. And if you don't find your spouse, stay chaste. Revere the Lord. Obey the Lord. This is his covenant with you. He will give you graces if you stay faithful to him. You fast, you pray, you don't do any mortal sins when it comes to any of the fleshly or worldly pleasure desires that your body wants, not saying yes to these disgusting acts. If you really truly think about it, that this isn't even your wife, you don't even know who this person is, you don't even know what, come on now. So if you like this type of content, leave your comments below. And especially if you are saving yourself, why are you doing that? Why are you staying chaste? Are you a man or are you a woman? What's your story? That's the biggest thing, is that everybody should leave their story below. It's a little bit more, out there for me to say this, especially how worldly I was for 20 years of my life, 25 years of my life, coming to confession and saying, listen, Father, it's been 25 years since my last confession, or keep on going to confession for the same sins left and right, just the same mortal sins, and then cutting off someone in my life that was, not of the world or not of Catholic belief, and then started cutting back other things like cursing, and then slowly just fasting more, praying more, being in the Word, then finally cutting off alcohol, and then finally cutting off illicit material, finally cutting off actually acting on that. And I can tell you right now, I'm the freest I've ever been. I recommend it to every single human being out there, because this is how our entire ancestors lived forever. This is all new. This is all new. And it's clearly a disaster. It clearly has been put into chaos today by all these nonsense people, modernists, saying that relativism is fine and whatever you do is fine and there is no consequences, there is no sacredness, there is no obedience to God. Don't worry about fearing God because he loves you. There is no account for your life on Judgment Day. There is a life that's going to be brought in front of you. There is going to be a recording of your heart, your mind, your soul, all your actions that you did. Did you stay faithful? Did you obey his word? Did you hear my message and act on it? And I highly recommend that other graces will flow from there that are also sins when you cut off a big part of this. If you're living together, if you are currently in a marriage that is not biblical, in a relationship that's not biblical, or you're in a marriage that's not biblical, get it, whatever it's called, I forgot the word where you get it, consecrated or sacramentally validated. But if you're in a relationship, you're living together or you're not living together, or you're having intimate relationships with someone, stop it. The Lord's not happy. Who cares about the other person? It's hard. I know it's hard. I went through it. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be potentially crying and a lot of feelings. There's going to be, who cares? That's not God talking. When those desires flood back all the time, which I had for months. So have a blessed day, stay chaste, pray, fast, read the Bible, and of course, as always, leave your stories below, encourage others to stay chaste, and bring someone to Mass this Sunday. Talk to you guys soon.